Coming home to the U.S. after 25 years in the military was a bit shocking to my system. I didn't realize just how bad the U.S. had gotten. It seems like every time I turn on the TV, there's another mass shooting, and it's tragic. The recent death of Charlie Kirk is tragic. The real thing to talk about at this point is not who's to blame or left versus right, but how can we prevent it? Dr. Jillian Peterson, she's the executive director of the Violence Prevention Project Research Center, and she has created a database in it of over 200 mass shooters. And she has written a book called The Violence Project, which talks about factors that were common with the different shooters. She identified 4 stages that many of the mass shooters go through before actually committing their act. One is early trauma. Whether it's abuse or neglect or loss of a loved one, they have this feeling that they're alone and they feel hopeless. And then there becomes a crisis point where they become isolated or they feel like they don't belong. And then there's the social influence. A lot of them start to search the dark web, and they start to find these websites where people are promoting violence, and they talk about violence as if it's acceptable. And people start to feel as if their actions are justified. And then there's access, They often get weapons from family members or online, and they have access to the place where they go. They tend to target places that they believe have wronged them or people they believe have wronged them. And when we look at that, you go, okay, how can we then stop it? Sandy Hook has a program, and it's about start with hello. Because one of the things that, as Dr. Peterson was interviewing the mass shooters, a few of them had said anyone could have stopped this, but there was no one. And so they felt alone in just one person stepping in, either with a voice of reason or a voice of kindness, just to make them not feel so alone. And I know that some of you may react to this, and why are we talking about the mass shooters? Their families are grieving, and I absolutely agree. And this is why I'm talking about it, because when we can talk about it and lend sympathy to people who are struggling and who see this as their only way out, their only recourse, their only way to somehow end their own pain. And then when we can start to move through that, then we can find a way to stop this so that there aren't more families who are grieving when, heaven forbid, a next shooting happens. So this is our goal, is to prevent the next shooting from happening. And this all comes down to choosing love and choosing belonging. A lot of times, I was looking at, there was and excuse me, but I think it was called Covenant. There was a school in Nashville. I'm on the other side. And when they looked at the shooter, it was a transgender person, and they felt alone. They felt targeted. They felt like they didn't belong. In the Charlie Kirk shooting, this person was in a relationship, whether it was roommates or friendship or romantic, but in a relationship with a transgender person. This really highlights we don't have to agree with what other people are doing with their lives, but what we should be doing as Americans and as Christians, or as people with whatever upbringing you have, spiritual upbringing, religious upbringing. All of the upbringings are about love and belonging and inclusion. And this is the way that we stop these mass shootings. When we see someone suffering, to offer them a hand. We de-stigmatize mental health so that they can get the support that they belong. And sometimes just a simple, hey, good morning, like, oh, someone sees me, I'm not alone, can seem so small, but it can mean the huge difference in these situations. And so I'm going to keep encouraging you to choose love. And in every interaction, even with those you don't agree with, love is still an option.